the king who tried to escape his revolution. On the night of June 20th, 1791, King Louis XVI left the Tuileries Palace in Paris. He was not leading an army. He was not speaking to the people. He was not signing a new law. He was running away. 2 days later, he would return to Paris under guard. After that, France could no longer see its king in the same way. The flight to Varennes did not create the French Revolution. The revolution had begun earlier. Financial crisis, the Estates General, the storming of the Bastille, and the struggle over rights and power had already changed France. But Varennes became the moment when many French people concluded that the king did not want to live inside the new constitutional monarchy. He wanted to escape from it. Why did Louis XVI flee? Why did the plan fail? And how did one night destroy trust in the monarchy? The royal family was in Paris not by its own choice. After the Women's March on Versailles in October 1789, Louis and Marie Antoinette were effectively forced to move from Versailles to the Tuileries. This brought the monarchy closer to the revolutionary capital, but also placed it under constant observation. During 1790 and early 1791, the conflict deepened further. The civil constitution of the clergy divided French society and intensified the conflict between the king and revolutionary authority. Louis publicly accepted parts of the new order, but private letters and actions showed that he did not see the revolution as a final compromise. After the events of October 1789, the royal family lived at the Tuileries in central Paris. Louis was still king, but he no longer possessed his former freedom of action. The National Assembly was limiting royal power. The nobility was losing privileges. Church reform had created a deep conflict. France was changing faster than the king could accept. Louis was not simply a symbol of the old regime. He tried to maneuver, accepted some reforms, but also distrusted the revolutionaries and searched for a way to restore his position. By the summer of 1791, the family decided to leave Paris and reach Montmédy, a fortified town near the frontier. The plan did not necessarily mean an immediate foreign invasion, but it would remove the king from the pressure of Parisian politics and allow him to act from a safer position. The escape was organized by people close to the royal family. Among them was the Swedish aristocrat Axel von Fersen, who helped arrange transport and the route. But the plan was too complicated. The royal family did not travel quickly in a small carriage. They used a large, heavy coach. It carried Louis, Marie Antoinette, their children, the children's governess, and attendants. The more people, luggage, and stops involved, the harder secrecy became. They used assumed identities. The king traveled as a servant. The children's governess was supposed to appear as a Russian baroness. The plan required precise timing. Carriages, guards, and horses all had to arrive when expected. But history rarely follows a perfect schedule. The departure was delayed. The coach moved slowly. Horses were not always waiting where they should have been. Every lost minute increased the chance that rumors would catch the fugitives. The fugitives were traveling too visibly. The large Berlin coach was comfortable for a royal family, but it was poorly suited to a secret journey. It moved slowly, attracted attention, and depended on carefully arranged changes of horses. The guards who were supposed to meet them were also not always where the plan expected them to be. Revolutionary France was no longer a country where an order from Versailles automatically guaranteed obedience on every road. Local authorities, national guards, and ordinary residents had political will of their own. Louis also left a political statement explaining why he opposed the direction of the revolution. When the text became known, it strengthened the suspicion that the king was not simply seeking safety. He was rejecting the new order. In Saint-Ménéhould, the local postmaster Jean-Baptiste Drouet likely recognized Louis. A popular legend says he compared the king's face to an image on a coin. Reality was more complicated. Drouet knew the town, saw the coach, noticed unusual details, and concluded that the passengers might be the royal family. He did not act alone in a vacuum. He warned local authorities and rode ahead along the route. At Varennes, the road had already been blocked. When the coach arrived, it was stopped, and the passengers' documents were examined. Louis initially tried to maintain the role of a servant, but tension, questions, and delays made the disguise impossible. The king was recognized. Instead of the safety of fortified Montmédy, he found himself in a small town surrounded by people who now knew that the French monarch had tried to leave the country. Varennes was not simply an arrest on a road. It showed that the royal family depended on people it might once have ignored: postmasters, municipal officials, militiamen, and residents of small towns. The old order assumed that royal status opened roads by itself. The revolution showed that local power could now stop a king. The plan also failed because it was organized like a court operation from an earlier age. A large coach, elaborate disguises, precise timetables, and the expectation of loyalty at every point on the route were poorly suited to a country where rumors, newspapers, local committees, and revolutionary politics traveled faster than royal secrecy. The next day, the royal family was taken back to Paris. The return was humiliating. Crowds gathered along the road. In Paris, the family returned not as rulers, but as people who had tried to flee from the nation. Supporters of constitutional monarchy still tried to save a compromise. They argued that the king had been kidnapped, or that his actions could be explained by pressure from those around him. But for radical revolutionaries, Varennes became proof that Louis could not be trusted as the head of a new France. Trust is a monarchy's greatest resource. A king can lose powers and still remain a symbol of the state. But when the public believes he is secretly seeking help against his own revolution, that symbol becomes a problem. After Varennes, France did not become a republic overnight. In September 1791, a new constitution was adopted, and Louis formally became King of the French rather than a monarch by divine right. But the old trust never returned. The flight also changed the revolution beyond Paris. European monarchs saw that the French king was not freely guiding events. In August 1791, the rulers of Austria and Prussia issued the Declaration of Pillnitz, expressing concern for Louis and the French monarchy. The declaration did not immediately produce an invasion, but it added to fears inside France that the king and foreign powers might work together against the revolution. Within France, the attempt to preserve constitutional monarchy became harder. Some deputies still wanted compromise. Others argued that a king who tried to flee could not be trusted with any constitutional role. The debate moved from reforming monarchy to questioning whether monarchy could survive at all. Events continued to radicalize. War with Europe's monarchies, suspicion of conspiracy, economic crisis, and political violence destroyed the space for compromise. In August 1792, the monarchy was overthrown. In January 1793, Louis XVI was executed. It would be dishonest to say that all of this happened only because he was stopped at Varennes, but it is fair to say that the escape made the old image of a king working with revolutionary France impossible to maintain. Louis wanted to regain control of his own fate, but by trying to escape, he lost the one thing that might still have saved the monarchy: trust. Varennes shows that points of no return do not always look like great battles. Sometimes they are a slow carriage, a series of delays, a postmaster who notices the wrong face, and one person who decides not to let a strange story pass by. Do you think Varennes destroyed trust in the king, or was the monarchy already doomed before that night? Subscribe to the Box of Ages for stories about the people and moments after which history could never be the same.